Hey Axis and Allies players, the good captain here, and welcome to another video, or the final part in this game of Axis and Allies D-Day played against a human opponent. I'll review the back half of round 7, and then turns 8 and 9 in quick succession. This game does get faster and easier to resolve when you get to the later turns. This game was no exception, and it was quite the nail biter all the way to the final roll. So here we go. I'm going to review what happened, or what the Germans did here regarding St. Lo. So the Allies clear this territory on their turn. Okay. But the Germans are now going to counterattack, and I think they throw everything in the kitchen sink. But it has to pass under the fighter cover. And so when this move is complete, half of the pieces get shot going in. So this is the importance of understanding movement rules. You make all the moves first so that you're not busting piece count limitations of each territory for each side, and then you roll the strafing runs. In this case, 4 pieces are attacking 7 pieces. So that's how we ended up over there. In Con, my opponent pulls back, ostensibly for a late game push against Con. So the battle in St. Lo goes like this. A very warm roll for the Germans here, but the Allies completely dismember this attack. This is not going to be a hot streak that continues for the Allies. But for this moment, yeah, this was pretty impressive. It started the turn clear and it ends the turn clear. The Germans will have to regroup and try again next turn. Okay? So when we get to the end of turn 7, the dice report was +1 Allies and plus 0.83 for the Germans. So everyone did a little bit better than the bell curve said they would do. Then we get to turn 8. Okay, and this is not the best turn for the Germans. But in some respects it is. And mostly around Cherbourg. So, yeah, on the Allied side, here I should probably pull the combat move. I send the bombers in and try to obliterate both of these tanks before moving into Cherbourg, expecting to get 1 hit, and I get none. So we push the territory and bring up the reinforcements in case it fails. But this should do the job with all these combined pieces, despite the bombers' missed attack there. In the south, I don't wait around for the Germans to attack. I push into this to freeze up these pieces more or less. And then I put a fighter group over Rennes, and no AA shots shoot down any fighters here. So this is something that kind of has been going on and continues to this point in the game. The AA guns just are not downing any more fighters at this point. And I do the same over here. I take 3 fighters and pin this group, and I take 3 fighters and pin this group, suffering no loss. So that's the lay of the land, and we go into turn 8. Allied side 8 is Cherbourg here, and this is where the first hints of a problem start to show up for the Allies. They underperform in the battle for Cherbourg, and the Germans do just fine. So we eliminate 1 German piece, but the Germans take off 3 of ours, and I'm now starting to count, because now the bombers can't engage in a territory that is a contested zone, so the bombers are out of this. It's got to be done by the ground units. The fighters and bombers have no effect up here anymore. So that's not going too well. And then down here, the spoiling attack. This one goes well enough. The Germans underperform a little bit, and the Allies pick up all their kills. So we're doing it fine. It's looking like St. Lo is going to be just fine with the spam of pieces around it. And over here, there's sort of a maneuver fight. One piece is placed on either side of the zones that the German tanks would otherwise move through on their way to Caen. And then I make this move here. I stack up all the British armor in this centerpiece. They can go to St. Lo from here, they can go to Caen from here, and they can interdict both of these zones from here. So it goes into the German side of turn 8. Okay. And then the German side of turn 8, he takes all his pieces and makes a desperate bid at takes a shot at St. Lo. He has to do this. At least my understanding of this game so far is that if he doesn't do this now, he knows I'm going to attack him, so he's got to go now. And if I attack him, he'll never get into St. Lo. Zero chance. So he rams in all the pieces. This time, 5 survive to make it in of the 8. And over in the east, he splits his attacking forces. He gets out from under the fighters, losing 1 piece. I'm sorry, no. He loses 4 pieces, so yeah, the fighters really doing their work now. And it's looking pretty thin, like a counterattack on Caen is going to work. So St. Lo is falling to pieces for the Germans. Caen is falling to pieces for the Germans. Up here, that there's no tactical or strategic decisions to make. The battles kick off. There's really nothing to say here. Nothing really jumps off the page as being overly surprising. St. Lo remains clear, and this is guaranteed a non-issue at this point in the game. End of round 8, St. Lo is totally secure. The end of round 8, Caen there's a possibility, but it's looking pretty thin that it's going to be a problem, but it theoretically could be. And Cherbourg is in this situation. The battle in Cherbourg, the Germans only picked up 1 kill, and this is going to end up being critical. The Allies picked up 2 kills, so they kind of close the gap a little bit. The Allies do, but not a whole lot. In fact, he misrolled slightly. There was another piece that needed to roll, and we rolled that offline. It ended up being 2 kills. So the Germans more or less hit their numbers, and the Allies thankfully picked up their 2nd kill. Okay, now we go into round 9, and this is where it goes all the way to the end. I deploy the Allied armor. I'm sorry, the Allied bombers, of course, hit these 2 German tanks, and then the rest of, and both bombers hit, so these German tanks are gone, and then there's a brief fight in this zone south of Caen. Of course, we dispose of this remaining German armor, and this closes down the Caen front. So Caen is secure. St. Lo is secure, okay? It's Cherbourg. Okay, I have until the end of turn 9 to get this thing locked out, okay? I've got 5 tanks and an infantry against his 2 tanks, an artillery, and an infantry. This is not a for sure thing. But if it's not cleared by the end of Germany's turn 9 here, if it's not completely in Allied hands at the end of this turn, we lose. It's GG. Despite all these extra pieces, all the good work the Allies did down here, we'll lose if there's even 1 German piece left up here in a contested status at the end of turn 9. So here's the roll. The Allies under roll significantly here, okay? This was a 16 pip attack. We were expecting 2 and hopefully a 3rd kill, and we only pick up 1. The Germans, fortunately, only pick up 1 on the return fire as well. And this is the situation we find ourselves in when we go into the German side, who now have to attack with 2 tanks and 1 artillery against 5 tanks. And this is the final roll. It all comes down to this. And the statistics for this are, as I counted it, I think 20% or 19% Allied win, right? Like just all the things that had to go wrong up to this point to make this so low. But here, I'll just cycle through it. What the Germans do on their attack, it doesn't matter at all. It's this next roll. So the Germans pick up a kill, but it doesn't matter. It's will these 5 tanks pick up 3 kills? And yes, they did by the skin of their teeth. So at the end of round 9, we look like this on the board. Since there's literally no German pieces to create or to have an opportunity to create a contested zone on the final turn, this goes to the Allies. This is an Allied win that very nearly didn't happen. And I was already being critical of myself, prior to this roll, prior to the outcome. I think with time and experience, a better Allied player will recognize how much and what to send north to Cherbourg. Obviously, it was a little light. I should have accounted for some degree of bad dice. And I'm saying that as somebody looking at this layup down here. I mean, this is way too many pieces down in St. Lo. Granted, the dice were a little warmer for the Allies down here, but and then Caen is its own thing, not really worth talking about. But that's what I want to discuss here. Turn 8, yes, the Germans had a rolled -2 overall, and turn 9, everyone basically hit their numbers. But wherever there was poor luck, it was for the Allies. It was basically up here, and it was made up for elsewhere. So the net, and now I'll discuss the dice and then make some conclusions. What I think I'm learning about this game. The Allies had a net -4 1/3 hits throughout this game. The Axis, or Germans, had a -6 2/3 hits. So though the dice were less favorable, or they were not favorable to either side, both sides shot under their marks, the Germans scored just over 2 kills more. There's basically a 2 1/3 piece gap between those two numbers. And the other big, but that I wouldn't say is a huge gap. So, both sides scored equally poorly for the most part. When it comes to the reinforcement rolls, the Allies scored right down the middle. The Americans managed to pick up the mystery artillery that hangs out at the end of the armor row here at the last line, and but I don't think they needed it. Right? It was just not needed. The British hit their numbers +0. The Americans hit their numbers +0. The Germans had +5 on the Rhine side and +3 on the Rouen side for a total of +8. So the reinforcements definitely went to the Germans. The dice, you'd have to make a pretty thin argument to say that it was favored one side or the other. Although yes, there was a slight edge, a very slight edge, in favor of the Allies, scoring not as bad as the Germans by 2 pieces essentially. So yeah, what made this game interesting to me was the last few turns. It was just like high doses of concentrated learning. One thing I noticed was the Allied fighters. This just must be where the skill factor comes in, is management of these fighters. It seems to me that the most important aspect was making the German, taking risks, yes, eating some AA shots and taking some calculated risks, and understanding what the German player felt pressured to do, and just stacking fighters on groups of Germans that basically had to move. Taking risks, putting the fighters in the right spots, getting a little bit lucky with the AA rolls, and then getting lucky. Basically, I think we shot net +1 for the strafes throughout the game, maybe +1.5. Anyway, I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but making the German player roll those strafes, being the Allied player and forcing as many strafes as possible to occur, appears to be, at least that's got my attention in future games. If I'm the Allied player, I think I'm going to start leaning towards less containment of German pieces, you know, being safe and putting fighters where the Germans are not and controlling their arrival or their displacement while you maneuver your armies in, I don't think is the best thing. I think it might, I'm starting to feel that it might be most optimal to expose your fighters to some mitigated and controlled risks in areas of the map and at times where there is an extremely high likelihood of picking up a bunch of strafing rolls. Yeah, that I think is the biggest, because the dice don't look that insane. The reinforcements lean German, and we still ended up with all these pieces left over as the Allies. And this could, yeah, this absolutely could have gone either way in Cherbourg. It just happened to go the way of the Allies. So what was the big difference here between this and the other games? Well, the dice. I'm still picking up and recording dice and everything, but for whatever reason, I'm just saying that I think that the fighters are probably the critical, or could be a critical component here. Because I've had Allied wins, but there are a lot of Allied pieces left on this board for not having a hot set of Allied dice or a hot set of Allied reinforcement rolls, especially in conjunction with that rather warm German reinforcement rolls. And the only thing I can think to attribute that to is, or was, just anticipating opponents' moves and then placing fighters accordingly. Just, okay, the guy really must do this on this turn, and if he doesn't, that's fine too, because then I can do this to him. And essentially, the Allies must attack the Germans. You gotta kill German pieces. It looks like you just gotta take them off the map any which way you can. And working closely, land and fighters working closely together seem to kind of help out in that way. Even if I had lost in con, I'd still be saying that down here because it's just so. I mean, we cleaned the map out. It's just crazy. So anyway, thanks to my opponent. That was a great game, and yeah, I've heard from a reliable source that this is the most balanced version of Axis and Allies, and we're definitely putting that to the test. Thanks for watching this. All the best from the good captain, and bye-bye.